We all carry a prison in our pocket, and for years, I didn't even realize I was locked inside. This isn't about quitting social media, it's about controlling it before it controls you. In this episode, I'll share real life moments that showed me I was trapped inside a digital incarceration and how research proved I wasn't alone. What's going on, y'all, man? Welcome or welcome back to the Broken Traditions podcast with Leron Gaskins, aka Big Ellie.
They call me Big Ellie.
In this episode, I'm going to discuss the new direction of Broken Traditions. Usually with the Broken Traditions podcast and Broken Traditions content, I spoke about, social commentary, things that's going on, keeping up with the know, keeping up with the new, and giving my perspective on it and talking about how we could, we need to break away from toxic traditions when it comes to Black culture. But I decided I want to take a new approach with the podcast and with the content. The approach I want to take is us detaching from our digital incarceration and us controlling our urge to keep being on the cell phone, to keep having this device control us. How the smartphone is now becoming more smarter than the user. And this came to me from a book that my brother sent me, right? Shout out to my brother, Big Mont. He sent me a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death right here. As you can see right here, Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman, right? Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business. And this book was released in 1985. And in that book, Mr. Postman warned us that television wasn't just entertaining us, it was shaping us. He said endless entertainment would distract us from truth, weaken our ability to think, and make us passive. But here's a catch. In 1985, entertainment was limited to television in your living room. Fast forward to 2025, and that same entertainment is amplified. We just don't have television anymore. We have television and social media in our pockets every waking moment, every single day. Postman warning wasn't just about television. It was about where we're headed as a culture. And 40 years later, his warning became a reality. And when I read this book, right, I just couldn't believe the things that he was saying 40 years ago and how, he laid it out perfectly. Like, I would suggest you guys get this book. I'll put a link in the description for you guys to get it. But reading this book and seeing where we're at right now was alarming. It was so alarming. I was like, I can't believe this is happening in this book. And I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. And, just recently I mentioned my wife, my son, and myself, we went to Colombia and how we were more in the moment and how much of an impact that was on our trip as opposed to being doom scrolling on our phones and, not in the moment. And I'm gonna speak about that a little bit later. But that book right there, man, it just opened my eyes up and I said, you know what? Now that I read this book, a book that was written 40 years ago, and now that I'm looking at the results of what it was predicted in this book being amplified by at least 1,000, right? And seeing it in real time and having conversations with people and seeing that, the algorithm is controlling them. I'm like, I want to go in a different direction with Broken Traditions. I want to talk about the digital incarceration. And what's so ironic when I say the digital incarceration, how our cell phones is holding us captive, our phones is holding us captive, how, notifications and pings and, the dopamine that comes along with looking at cell phones is keeping us incarcerated. Ironically, it's called a cell phone. And when you are incarcerated, the area that you're locked into is called a cell. So cell, and that's why when I did the live stream not too long ago, I used the picture of the iPhone with the person behind bars because that is your cell. That is what's keeping you captive. And man, we are in for a doozy. We are in for a doozy, and I'm up to the challenge of tackling this. I'm up to the challenge of helping you to escape the digital incarceration because I know being on the other side of it, the benefits of it. And I think that, a lot of people feel like we are in a digital incarceration state. I think a lot of people feel like we need help with this. And when I start, coming up with the idea of this and thinking about this, and I'm talking to people about this, a lot of people saying, yeah, I see that as a problem. Yeah, my relationship have this issue. Yeah, I have this issue with my kids. Yeah, I have this issue with, people at work. Think about it. We have this issue with, you want to be full transparent. Like you go to a restaurant, right? And the people at the restaurant give you the worst service you ever had in your life. But what's the thing that's common with the people that's working at the restaurant? They all doom scroll on their phones. They're not being intentional of serving you. So you see it in customer service. You see it in everything. Why social media is such a problem. Neil Postman warned us in 1985. Back then it was a TV. In 2025, it's TV and social media, and we carry both in our pocket. So before, I fully engulfed into this new mission that I would say attacking social media. I decided to test this out for myself, right? So before, I tell somebody you need to do this, I'd rather do it for myself. And I did like this 7-day type of detox, which I'm gonna explain later. I decided to test it out for myself. I took a step back from social media and the results were undeniable. I noticed that I'm more focused on things. I noticed I felt sharper, more alert. I was more productive, right? I felt, I'll be honest with you, I felt like I was back in high school. My main focus was being a student, then sports, then social life, right? And I wasn't the best student, Yeah, I had to learn how to learn. I didn't learn how to learn until well after high school. But I would say I was definitely more focused on things that was important to me in high school, right? So say like a class like social studies, learning about history. I was more focused on that. I was very advanced in those type of subject matters as opposed to like science, something I didn't care about. You know what I'm saying? But I felt that focus that was attached to myself with social studies and history. I felt more sharper. I felt more alert, I felt more productive. And just to feel it, to have that feeling come back. And I was like, wow, this feels good. This feels good. So once I did that detox, and I start realizing that, that this is shaping me in this sense. I say, you know what? I want to try to create something. And I did. I created the digital release. It's a 7-day workbook. I'll leave it in the pinned comments. It's a free workbook. So you ain't got to pay for it, but it's a free workbook. I'm gonna talk about it more, down the line when it comes down to this podcast and the direction that we're going with broken traditions. But the experts back this up, right? Dr. Amin Newton from the American Medical Association says social media can totally impact adults. It's very targeted, which can be harder for adults as well as teens. And it's not just me. Over 33 million Americans are now considered addicted to social media. That's about 1 in 10 adults. Not to mention, those are the people who are considered to be addicted to social media. We're not even talking about the people who I guess they borderline addicted, right? I think the 33 million Americans that's addicted to social media, that's 1 in 10 adults. I think the number of people who are borderline is probably like 5 in 10 adults. How people are so addicted to social media. I thought I was running my phone. Like I said, I thought I was smarter than my smartphone. But my phone was running me. My phone understand how to keep me engaged and keep me looking at these screens and keep me scrolling and keep me looking at, you know, content. They understand the dopamine, all that stuff. But we're going to get into that later on in different episodes. But it was just a lot of things that was, compacted to keep me addicted to the cell phone. So, like me leaving social media, right? Me just doing that 7-day detox and see how this worked for me. A person that I saw doing it in real life was my wife, Mama Lex, right? She made a choice to step back from social media a while ago, right? A while ago. And I think that seeing her making that shift, I noticed that she didn't worry about certain things that wasn't on in her preview, right? So say for example, me doing broken traditions and me looking at content to react to and me getting upset about certain things. And I'm like, damn, man, you saw this? She's like, no. And I'm sitting there trying to explain to her, trying to give her the whole rundown in the midst of me explaining to her and giving her the whole rundown of things that I'm about to, make content about. I'm realizing more and more and more I say it, the more and more and more it's irrelevant to our lives. And she already had that moment. She already had that, I guess some people call come to Jesus moment about being, more calmer, more happier, more in the moment, you know, able to, hey, let's take this picture because I think this picture look nice, and the picture get printed. It's not the picture's not stuck into the cell phone that we took a picture we never go back to and reference to. You know what I'm saying? So she was my first example of seeing somebody living like that and not being so glued to, what's the trends on TikTok and what dance is this and what song is that. And it was so cool about it. She shifted to become her own person, right? And the influences that I guess that shaped her in a sense was things that was in her day-to-day life as opposed to seeing something on a curated algorithm in order for you to buy something. And I was like, that's kind of dope, right? So Columbia University researcher Claude Mellons explains why. Social media can create unrealistic expectations and can be detrimental to mental health. And the numbers don't lie. Nearly 40% of adults say social media leaves them feeling lonelier, not more connected. Let's let that sink in for a bit. 40% of adults say social media leaves them feeling lonelier, not more connected. But even though these 40% of adults saying that, how many percentage of that 40% will continue to keep going back to the phone and keep scrolling, keep looking at it, keep being a prisoner of the digital incarceration, knowing that now you digitally incarcerated and now you digitally in solitary confinement because you're feeling lonelier, not connected. Seeing her progression, seeing her happiness, seeing her not being attached to the digital incarceration, she stepped out of that prison. It didn't happen by chance. It happened by her stepping out and saying, you know what, this is not a life for me. I don't need to be caught up into this algorithm. I don't need to be basically told by a curated algorithm on how I need to feel. I'm gonna just go back old school and feel how I'm supposed to feel. That was one moment, right? Now, shout out to Jamari Cash Out, my son Jamari, right? We just came back from Colombia, right? And it's something with Colombia and something with like a day-to-day thing that with him that he talks about. So we came back from Colombia, and during our Colombia trip, there was a moment where we went to a salsa club to learn how to do the salsa dance that was part of the Petronio Alvarez Music Festival. And we were with a group, and that group had us and other people who were visiting Colombia, and how it was basically all Americans, right? We all Americans in this group. And when we got to the club, we learned this dance, and we all having fun. So it's me, Jamari, Lex. We all having fun in this club, learning this dance and just, having fun in the moment, right? We noticed that nobody else in our group was with us. And we were looking for the group. We went upstairs where the group were at. And guess what the group was doing? They were all in their phones. And, at that moment, I didn't think about it. But Jamari reminded me, and he said, this is so crazy that these people were literally in another country in this crazy environment, this crazy atmosphere, learning how to do these dances for the Petronio Alvarez Festival, and they were doom scrolling. It's like, how come that algorithm that was on this is not better than the algorithm that we see right now? And when he said that, I was like, damn, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that he put that together like that. I mean, I could believe it. He could get deep sometimes, but it's like when I realized what he said and seeing it in real time, I was like, wow. And another thing he pointed out sometimes, right? Like him and his friends are chilling in the car, whatever, or chilling at the house, just having conversations. He noticed that his friends all fall into this endless doom scrolling. So they're literally in a room with him, in a car with him, but they're not there with him. And I think it's annoying. You know what I'm saying? It's annoying that you in a moment with somebody and they just whoop, go to a phone and just start, just scrolling for the sake of, I guess, I have to know what's going on right now on my phone as opposed to being engaged in this conversation with you. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. So Pew Research, right? Pew Research found out that 48% of teens say social media have mostly a negative effect on their peers. Now, my son is not in a teen group, You know what I'm saying? By the time this comes out, he just about to turn 21. But that behavior comes from that. That behavior comes from that. And that behavior is up 32% from a few years ago. And for the young adults or the young teens who spend 3 or more hours daily on social media, they face double the risk of depression and anxiety. Think about when you talk to some of these teens, you talk to some of these young adults, they be someone they depressed, they anxiety, they talk, unfortunately you see um these young adults, young teens taking their lives, suicide. It's like they grew up in it and they don't know anything else. Even the young adults and the kids could see the loop happening. And the numbers prove it's not just an observation, it's a reality. So now to another shift, right? Another experience that made me realize that this is a problem. So we're going to go to age group, right? Started with me. I'm the oldest, Mama Lex, Jamari. Then we're going to go to little Heidi, right? My stepdaughter. So this past summer, right? Mama Lex and I, we decided we're going to work together to monitor Heidi's screen time, right? This is something that we know is an issue and something that is a habit that could snowball into a lot of different things. Like we said, depression, anxiety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we was like, we're going to monitor her screen time. Got our iPad, put the parental controls on there. So when she's on it, it got to be a certain amount of time she could be on there for, whatever. But we didn't just limit her screen time. We also replaced it. Instead of scrolling, we use that time to get her ahead for school, right? So it could be reading, it could be learning multiplications, because that's the grade that she's going into, that multiplications is the thing that these kids are now focused on. And it could be, reading comprehension, writing stories, doing things that getting little Heidi ready for the next chapter in school. So they had opening day at the school. And I remember there was another student that was there, or another student and her mom. And, Lex and I was there. And we was like, yeah, we're going to start, multiplications. And I know that Heidi now knows 0 through 12, back and forth, 12 to 0, 0 to 12, multiplications. She know all that, right? She can recite it anytime. You say, all right, let's do 6. She goes 6, 12, 8, like she know the whole thing, right? So much so that I start learning a little bit about multiplications and stuff I didn't realize that we was going so hard doing this. Well, but just knowing that she's so ready for it, and hear what the teacher was saying, that how we're going to start, showed that we are so far ahead because we decided to dial back the screen time and replace the screen time with learning and getting ready for school. The teacher was like, yeah, first we're going to start with zeros, then from ones, then 5, then 10. And I'm like, phew. I just showed like using that replacement was so vital to her being more prepared than all the other kids, right? Leron, why does this matter? Why do we care about this? 1 in 3 children as young as 11 already show signs of smartphone and social media addiction. And that's from the Financial Times. Think about the iPad kid who will scream and have a whole fit because they can't look at a screen. Think about the iPad kid that you see that just can't function without that screen. The digital incarceration is here. And the reason why I also bring this up with Heidi, I'm gonna just kind of pivot to something else, a conversation I had with somebody, and hopefully I get this person on the Wins and Lessons podcast. But I was speaking to a politician, right, who was running for to be on the board for school, and we was talking about the literacy rate of our young adults, of our young children, and how the illiteracy rate of 3rd grade is determined how many prisons need to be built. So we going from the lack of literacy to how many prisons are going to be built. And now you add in a cell phone, or you add in a digital incarceration about how many prisons are going to be built. Now we putting our children to a disadvantage because we having them attached to this phone. They're literally banking on you being attached to this phone to you becoming a prisoner in real life. The digital incarceration to now the physical incarceration. that pipeline is something that we need to discuss. And we're going to do that down the line with the Broken Traditions podcast. These aren't just, my immediate family stories, right? Between myself, my wife, my son, my stepdaughter. These are not just those stories. The research is clear. Depression symptoms in kids are 35% as social media increases. How are our kids depressed? 35 is rising at 35%. 78% of people use social media before bed. And more than half say it ruins their sleep. Think about it. You know that's going to ruin your sleep, but you're still going to scroll before you go to bed. You're going to still allow that blue light to come into your eyes and ruin your whole sleep pattern. Even middle-aged adults are reporting doom scrolling and toxic appearances daily. And that's another thing that kind of made me realize that this is a problem. I remember being at a cigar lounge, right? I'm not going to say the lounge, but I'm going to just say the story, right? 'Cause I'm not trying to tie nobody to the story. And, I'm at a cigar lounge. And when it comes to being at cigar lounges, most times I'm like the most youngest person at 42 years old. It's mostly older men, you know, at a cigar lounge, or it's mostly like, just older people, maybe older couples, whatever. Definitely when Lex goes, she's like a baby, right? I'm young, but she's like a baby at a cigar lounge. And I remember sitting there one time, just chilling, being in the moment, or I might have been working or something, whatever. I just might have been watching TV. Like sometimes they have sports playing, you just sitting there watching TV, whatever. And there was somebody older than me, somebody like in their 60s, mid 60s, doom scrolling on TikTok. I'm like, damn, you are doom scrolling on TikTok at 65 years old. I don't know why that alarmed me, knowing that how addictive they made these social media apps for people to be addicted. But seeing somebody that much older being addicted was alarming to me. And these aren't just the stats. These are the walls of a digital prison that we all built around ourselves. Now, I gave you these stories. I'll let you know how I feel about this, but I want to be clear. I am not here to tell you to quit social media. I'm here to help you control it before it controls you. That's why I created the Digital Release Workbook, a free workbook that is going to be in the pinned comments if you're watching this on YouTube, or go into the show notes if you're watching this on Spotify or listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Amazon Podcasts, what have you. If you're listening to those platforms, the digital release plan, the escape from the digital incarceration for you to escape from your cell, to help you reclaim your time, reclaim your focus, right? Yeah, it's a 7-day reset, a 7-day workbook designed to help you step outside of the digital incarceration and reclaim your time. So here's my question for you. What's one moment you realized your phone or social media was a problem in your life? Drop your answers in the comments. Share this episode with someone who needs it. And don't forget, every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there's a new episode of Broken Traditions with Leron Gaskins. I appreciate y'all. All right, until next time, peace. Real Rap Ron, a.k.a. Big Ellie, is signing off. All right, peace.